If this year is different than last year from a trend standpoint and you don't like it, you have to dig in without bias. If we're not clear on what's affecting what, then we can make decisions that actually harm the practice. We have to be curious enough to get in and try to triangulate. What are the 17 ways I can look at this thing to see, am I missing something? Could it be something else? Welcome to another episode of the Physician Growth Accelerator, a show where we break down your private medical practice systems into vitals, give you the tools to diagnose root cause of what may be restricting your growth, and prescribe what to do about it. I'm your host, Zed Williamson, and I believe that everything you experience in personal and business life is the perfect outcome of your current system. And the more we can get into that state, the quicker we can dive into understanding root cause of what's restricting our problems or our growth and really create solutions that have broad impact across our lives. The other side of the understanding around everything is the perfect outcome of our current system is also taking ownership in behavior. I'll give a silly example. Let's say, and I'm just going to make some things up. So whether you find this medically true or not, it doesn't really matter. I'm just using this as an example. But imagine there's someone and they have a goal of losing weight. And they also have the goal of getting some nutrients in their lives, okay? And so they think there's some important nutrients. And I want you to imagine that this person has decided to have a breakfast, and the breakfast is a big bowl of Cheerios because they're fortified with nutrients, a full banana because potassium's important, maybe a bowl of oatmeal for fiber because fiber is good for you, and some milk. Okay. Now, that exact meal eaten at breakfast probably, like I said, I'm not here to get in a discussion of medical exactness, probably does not set the person up to lose a bunch of weight. And you could even decide to eat that way if you wanted to gain weight. So for instance, if you were someone who is trying to gain weight in sports earlier in your life, it would probably be recommended to eat that as a breakfast. Cheerios, bananas, oatmeal, milk. You would gain weight. But here's what happens. The brain wants to ignore the things that we don't want to have happen, and it wants to focus on the things that we want. Okay, so, Cheerios are fortified with vitamins, so, they got iron. Iron is good. Oatmeal's got fiber. Fiber is good. And a banana is a fruit, and so that's natural, so natural is good. And we ignore the other thing. Whereas if you were to go to this person and say, hey, if you want to gain weight, a really good way to do that would be to eat Cheerios with bananas and oatmeal. And their brain would kind of take a step. They'd go, wait a second, but I'm doing that to lose weight because I get all this other benefit. And we have to be mindful of what our brain will agree to pay attention to if we're not guiding it. If you want iron, well, let's say, how about this? Let's have a meal of nails, cardboard, and, potassium powder. Well, you get all the benefit of the other meal. And I know it's kind of a silly example, but when we speak as if we're making our decisions on purpose to create the outcome that we don't like, it helps us identify what we need to do differently. So let's say you do track your numbers pretty closely and you're looking at a trend, and here it is, September timeframe, and you're looking and you go, I don't like the trend of this year. And you think to yourself, we got to do something about this, or I want to do something about this. And let's say you believe that your healthy breakfast helps you lose weight, when in fact, maybe the nutrients are beneficial to you, but it actually helps you gain weight. Imagine if that was happening within your business. And this is where understanding the full picture of data really, really matters. In the month of September, if you don't like the trend of your revenue, the first thing you have to understand, you look at your income statement from August, do the work, spend the time, have somebody identify where all of that revenue came from a time standpoint. What month work created September's deposits? And there's going to be an average number, maybe 45 days or 60 days or 75 days. The reason that's important is because you need to know how much of the rest of your year is already baked and done. If it is 60 days previous is what gave you your deposits in August, so that means the work you do in September, you're going to have deposits in November and December. So you have a very little amount of time to affect any trend outcome if that is the case. Here's the thing. If you don't know, then you can make a decision and think the outcome of that decision is a change, but the change wasn't based on what you just did. It was based on something else because you're not aware of that time frame. So you have to understand the time frame. Are you a private practice leader dealing with team drama, growth headaches, or just trying to keep your head above water? Introducing the Physician Growth Accelerator membership, a free resource for our podcast listeners like you to get real solutions. Inside, you'll find exclusive materials, free courses, bonus podcast content, and live events, all designed to help your practice grow. It's free for now, so don't wait. Visit physiciangrowthaccelerator.com and click members to join today. For your deposits, what work created that? When did that work happen? Then you also have to understand, did something change? So if this year is different than last year from a trend standpoint and you don't like it, you have to dig in without bias. And the reason I say without bias is because your brain is going to try to jump to the fact that your Cheerios have iron and bananas have potassium. And you're going to ignore the fact of the impact on insulin, right? I know I keep going back to this goofy example, but for some reason it makes sense to me. And if you just go look at one thing and you say like, well, you know what? Insurance doesn't pay enough anymore. Our contracts went down. Then once you state that, everything you look at will be proof of that belief. That's called confirmation bias. That is not a healthy way to make business decisions. Once you believe something, you want to do everything in your power to prove it, and then you need to do everything in your power to disprove it, because it is likely not the root cause when you start digging. So if you're going to compare year to year, imagine looking at total patient volume. Okay, so let's see if that's similar. Let's understand insurance share based on that total patient volume. So did I have the same number of patients, but the insurance changed? Was there a difference in what patients were coming to us for? Was there this massive change in CPT codes from a count of a certain CPT code year over year? Was it a specific CPT code related to a specific insurance contract that is less than what we were seeing the previous year? Is there a difference in timing? So if I go back a year ago, was it 60 days ago the work created today's deposits, but in this year it's 75 days ago? Did you take time off that kept you from being in production, and is that different than last year? You have to look at all the things that potentially impact the information you're looking at, because if you don't do that, you will make a change, and it's kind of like deciding to do surgery on a patient without any kind of diagnostic scans. Someone comes in and they go, man, I'm in pain, doc. Oh, okay, well, let's do some surgery. And imagine them never pointing to the spot of where it hurts. Imagine never doing a diagnostic test of any kind, and you just start slicing and dicing. That makes absolute no sense whatsoever. So why do we do it in business all the time? We jump to a conclusion. We don't find the data to either prove or disprove it, and then we just continue to get frustrated. And we're making decisions not within a time frame that's actually affecting our desired outcome. And then what you can do is, let's say you are feeling that right now. What I would say is own the statement. Say, we operated a practice this year that created this downward trend in business. So what are we going to do next time? What you might think about is having goals that are maybe quarterly and tracking to them so that you're not surprised, 8 months in, that things aren't going the actual way we want. And what are some of the leading indicators that we can understand? So let's say you track patient call volume. Is call volume going down over time? But there's no change to your revenue because you already were basically over capacity. But as the call volume continues to go down, it starts to hit your business. But it hits your business a lot later. And so again, if we're not clear on what's affecting what, then we can make decisions that actually harm the practice. So the moral of the story is our brain is going to lie to us. Our brain is going to make us believe that the actions we are taking are the best ones possible. It's going to only look at the potential positives of what we are doing and the potential negatives of what other people are talking about. It's going to ignore the data that doesn't justify what we believe. And it's going to focus in heavily on the data that does. We don't want that part of our brain driving our business. We have to be curious enough to get in and try to triangulate. What are the 17 ways I can look at this thing to see, am I missing something? Could it be something else? And then once you do understand, oh, you know what? Here's the issue. We have a 50% drop in this patient type with this symptom. And so that means we're doing 47% less of this specific procedure. And that's equal to the revenue drop for the practice. Great. So once you find that, now take the statement, we are purposely reducing the number of those patients coming to our office. How are we doing that? And sometimes it just takes brainstorming on how do you make that fail. Let's go make sure we never get that patient again. It's going to help you identify what potentially is happening out in the world that's creating that specific outcome. So I know it can be a little tricky. The idea that sometimes our brain is going against us. It's just trying to make us feel good. And it's usually better to take over from a conscious standpoint and say, okay, I did this. I created this reduction. And I need to find out how I created it so I can create something different going forward. And once I believe I found the culprit, I need to attempt to disprove that concept with every bit of effort that I can. And if I can't disprove it, then it's pretty good that I caught the right thing. If you ever want help digging through your information, or you're curious, or you're wondering, where should I start looking? Always feel free to reach out to the Physician Growth Accelerator team. You can go to physiciangrowthaccelerator.com. While there, you can check your vitals. There's a lot of resources to learn from, or just reach out. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Physician Growth Accelerator.